أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. For some unknown reason, sabr, patience, is seen in a negative light. In fact, it is always seen as a sign of weakness. And thus, whenever you mention stories that contain a great amount of patience and endurance and forbearance, you will notice that the person that is involved in this subject is brought under a light of contention. People start questioning, how could this person have been so quiet in this given situation? Because when it comes to patience, people tend to look at it as a sign of weakness. Is it weakness? Is it hopelessness? Or is it strength and courage? See, patience that is only used, or patience or sabr that is used when there is no alternative. Okay, when I say there's no alternative, like you have no choice in the matter at all, is a form of hopelessness. But patience that is used when you have an alternative and you're capable of this alternative, but the patience is what will bring about the better result, this is the strength in patience. A bit like forgiveness. You know, when someone says someone has oppressed them or someone has hit them or done something, and they say, well, Allah ysamhu. And you say, of course Allah ysamhu. The guy has an army of 50,000 soldiers, for example. And you say, of course I'm going to let it go because you can't do anything about it. But when I'm capable of doing something about it, and with this capability I decide to forgive them, this is when it's considered forgiveness. And likewise with the issue of patience. When you fast in this month, in this holy month, you really practice patience. Because at any given time you can pull the plug. At any point you can say, stuff it, I'm not fasting. You know, the angels aren't going to turn around and say, all right, let's kill this guy, he's not fasting anymore. At any point you can say, I'm going to eat, that's it, I'm not fasting. So you have an alternative, you can stop. And this brings about real patience. And this patience, Allah Azza wa Jal says it is a means. It is a means to strengthen you in this world. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Allah Azza wa Jal says to seek means of assistance or aid with patience and with prayers. As we know with prayers, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. That prayers, it assists you because it prohibits you or prevents you from doing immorality and indecencies. With patience, it's not just being patient over everyday living. When Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi mentions patience, alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah, he says وَصَبْرًا فِي شِدَّةٍ, that the God-fearing are patient and they're enduring during hardships. This is where their patience comes in. Because you look at normal patience, as is described when Allah Azza wa Jal speaks about Ashab Badr. And when we talk about the Ashab Badr, as Samaht al-Sheikh on one of the first nights, he mentioned some of the companions of Badr. And these are people, honestly, they are the giants. When I say they are the giants of the history and of companionship with Rasulullah. When you talk about the true companions of Rasulullah, these were the true companions of Rasulullah. The ones that stood firm. The ones that took such a great stance that even when we measure their greatness, and we do, like for example, Ziyarat Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam, we say that you passed or you went through the trials like the people of Badr. That these people were so great in this position. Allah Azza wa Jal, when He mentions them in this battle, He says to them, إِن يَكُم مِّنكُمْ عِشْرُونَ صَابِرُونَ يَغْلِبُوا مِئَتَيْنِ. He says, if there are 20 patient ones, notice he doesn't say military personnel. He doesn't say 20 grunts. He doesn't say 20 special forces. He doesn't say 20 soldiers. He doesn't say 20 horsemen. He doesn't say, Allah Azza wa Jal says 20 sabirun, 20 patient people. They can defeat, he says what? 200. 10 times the amount. Now why? Because in Badr, they were undiluted. They were true believers. As I mentioned last night with Sayyidah Khadija, they were people that believed, alayha salam, at a time when they did not see the fruition of Islam. They didn't see it. They didn't see, they hadn't seen what Islam would become. They didn't see this Islamic nation that would be led by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What they saw was a messenger of God that had to migrate from his hometown. And their suffering and the hunger that they went through. So these people were people of patience. 20 of them were capable of defeating 200. And then Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَإِن يَكُن مِّنكُمْ مِئَةٌ يَغْلِبُوا أَلْفًا مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ. He says, and if there is 100 of you, they can defeat 1,000. 20 to 100, 100,000. Same measurement. 10 to 1. You are patient. So 100 people of patient are capable to defeat 1,000. Remember, we said Badr were the elite when it came to faith. After they were victorious in battle, a bit like we mentioned sport last night, same thing. You got your sports fans, taban. It's not the same comparison, but I'm giving you the other, what you call diehards. You know, the ones that go watch a sporting game, win or loss. They're called what? They're called fans. You know why they're called fans? Because they're fanatical. That's why you call them fans. They're fanatical about what they support. That they follow it all the way. Then you got the ones that tag alongs. You know, the ones that, you know, I'm support. You know, the people that live in New South Wales and support Queensland. They support the winning team. Those people. Yeah. The ones that just tag along with the winner. And then when it shifts over, then they move to the other side. So these people said, all right, Badr worked out. So what happened in Uhud, it became diluted. You know, before you had the fighters in Badr, in Uhud you had the fighters and you had the runners. You had the ones that would join the battle and they were there, and they had one foot on one side of the fence and the other foot on the other. Depends which way the battle would sway or how they would perceive its sways. So in this case, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the verse after this differently. He says, الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا. See, before there was purists. Now, you know, the usual suspects have entered the equation. The ones that are known for running from the battles. The ones, if you want to study the history of the Sahaba, the ones that have got no kills to their names. You know, the campers when you're playing Call of Duty. The one who just sits there and gets stabbed at the end. You know, absolutely does nothing. So one of those. So you got these campers, they're the ones that are left. They're ready to just run in and take the easy kills. So these ones that are left right at the end have entered the equation. So Allah Azza wa Jal says He sees deficiency amongst them. And then He says, فَإِنْ يَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ مِئَةٌ صَابِرَةٌ. So if there's 100 patient of you, يَغْلِبُونَ مِئَتَيْنِ. The 100 before could defeat 1,000, now the 100 could only beat 200 because they're diluted. You know, it's a bit difference because there were martyrs in the battle before, and during Uhud there was shuhada, and so it's changed. But if you notice, the catalyst in the whole, the catalyst in the experiment is what? The patient. The reaction is bigger based on what? The patience. These people with patience were the ones that become victorious. Why? Because they believe. The ones with Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Ashura believed. So they didn't think on the 7th of Muharram, if we attack now, we will win. They say our victory is in God's hands. And the only way we attain this victory is through the command of our Imam. If this victory comes through intisar, like it came with Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah alayhi, then so be it. But if this victory comes through martyrdom, like it came with Hamza and Ja'far, then so be it. Regardless, this is how they think. It's like the people, you know, there's two types of people when it comes to intidhar, al-hujjah, ajallah farajahu sharif. When it comes to awaiting the reappearance of our Imam, there are two types of people. They are the ones that always search for the signs. The ones that say, hold on, another sign just popped up. You know, that it's the end of times. And these things always used to happen. I mentioned before, when people used to, you guys are much younger, before they used to tell us like the television was Al-Awar al-Dajjal, the one-eyed anti-Christ. And then they said it was the internet, the computer, then the phone. And even the point where Sufyani at one stage with our fathers was the Soviet Empire. They say Sufyani meant the Sovieti. You know, back then when communism had entered the Middle East, they used to always make something up to agree with the narrations. Then you have the other side, the ones that are patiently awaiting the Imam. That they are ready and they read the narration, they read supplication that if I'm not going to be with you, may Allah Azza wa Jal raise me when you rise. That's all they're worried about. I'm ready for you. Whenever the time God decrees, I am patient and I wait this time. Now we take a look at patience here as a source of strength. But let's look at patience with regard, because we're talking about hardship. Patience, hardship when it comes with regard to obedience to Allah. You need patience in this worship. Honestly, to wake up and pray morning prayers in this kind of weather, you need patience. To get up and wash in this weather, you need patience. You know, some people need to wake up. They wake up for Salah Subh, they need to do wudu. Some people wake up and there's an accident. They need to do ghusl. And that becomes, it's tormenting. This requires what? It requires patience. Fasting, for us not necessarily, we're not really fasting. You get home, you're having lunch pretty much. But the people that are fasting in the heat, those that fast in summer, Shahr Ramadan, this requires patience. Patience when it comes to worship. Especially those that go to the Hajj. When you go to the Hajj, from beginning to the end, you are tested with your patience. Be it on the flight, be it with the Wahhabis there, or furthermore, which I find the biggest test is not the Wahhabis, not the flight, not the actual Hajj. The biggest test is the people that are with you in the Hajj. The Hajjaj that are traveling with you are the biggest test that you have when you're there. Because you're with someone that you don't know for the first time, or someone that you knew on a salamu alaikum, alaikum assalam basis. Kif ahwalak, you see them in the center. But this time you're actually with them. You actually see the things you do not know. They do things you never expected people do. And you have to put up with it. And this really tests you. Because Allah Azza wa Jal puts you in a position and says, you're here to be tested. You're here to be pushed to your limits, and everyone's different. Some things that you might find as normal, other people find them inconsiderate. Some things you find inconsiderate, other people find them normal. And God says, this is your trial. Be patient. Don't lose your temper. Don't do this. Don't do that. So there's this patience when it comes to worship. There's patience when it comes to resisting temptation. Taban, our tests in this country differ to the countries in the Middle East. Patience in this country with regard to food and where you can actually eat and when you cannot eat. Where's halal, where's haram? What's permissible for you to eat, and things people overlook in this country. We have this test. When it comes to women in this country, is another big issue on how you deal. If you're in Saudi Arabia, you're walking through the street, everyone's covered up. Literally. You walk through the street and you don't have the effect. The rudest shock, for example, when you go to Hajj, the rudest shock is when you arrive in the first foreign airport. It's like your eyes open up to a new world. Because everything's sealed and covered, you get there and everything has changed. So it's two different worlds you live in. To resist this temptation requires patience. So this sabr comes through, this hardship. One of the biggest problems people go through in this country is music, for example. Because music, like alcohol, it's a part of the culture. And music's part of the culture of the whole world. Pretty much singing and music's become part of the culture. If you don't listen to music right now, the way you are perceived by people when you don't listen, someone says, have you heard the latest song from this person or that person? And you say no, then they say, what do you listen to? Have you ever noticed if there's a survey, they do a poll where they ask people, what's your favorite food? What clothes you like? Then ask what's your favorite music? Because it's a given. Everyone listens to music. So for you to live in this country and tell them, I don't want to listen to what you listen to, this is not permissible, they think you're a bit twisted. You're not on the level. Something's wrong with you. If you won't have a drink, something's wrong with you. This person doesn't drink. Call you a teetotaler. What's it called? The Balmain captain, the father of Mitchell Pearce, Wayne Pearce, they call him what? Junior. Do you know why they call him Junior? Because he doesn't drink. Junior, he's still a kid. Yeah, because he doesn't drink. It's belittling. Because he won't drink, that's the position they take towards you. That you're not someone that's seen as an adult, because when you become an adult, you actually drink alcohol. And even when it comes to obedience to your parents, this is very difficult because parents and kids aren't on the same wavelength. Firstly, in most cases, not all cases, sometimes there are kids more intelligent than their parents. But in most cases, the parents are more intelligent than the children. And as they say, a young man thinks that an old man is a fool, but an old man knows that a young man is a fool. It's a fact. That's why when they give you advice, they've seen life. In the majority of cases I'm talking about. You have your anomalies, the people that don't go with this same equation. So we'll just say, generally when it comes to obeying your parents ask you to do things that you may find abnormal, but you endure. And during this endurance, this is the patience through hardship. This hardship. So there's patience through worshipping Allah, there's patience through resisting temptation, and then there's the real hardship with the trial. There is the patience with trials. But trials and calamities and all these problems are a part of life. So it's not only limited to death and suffering. When we think about calamity, we think of death and suffering. That someone suffered, and because of this suffering that they went through, haram, fulan, his brother died, or his son died, or his daughter died. But this is part of life. There's life and there's death. But there is other types of suffering that the believer goes through. And that is in their relationships. Especially when it comes to marriage. People, when they get into a relationship, they divorce immediately because they don't have the patience to go through the problem that's there. And it's a fact. The next woman you marry will not necessarily be better than the one you were with. Not necessarily. You got no... And the next man this woman will marry will not necessarily be better than the husband that she has. Taban, there are reasons when divorce, if a woman's married to a wife beater, she doesn't want that. If someone's beating her up, this is wrong. She doesn't want to be with this person. But she's just married to someone that they don't see eye to eye with certain things. And this is the majority of problems. The majority of problems aren't got to do, a woman once, this is recent, a woman called me, she said that her husband, they're not happy, she wants a divorce. And I said, is there any violence between you? She said, yes. Now I'm not going to say the actual, what she said, because they're not linked back to the people. She said, yes. And I said, yes, so he's hit you? She said, yes, he's hit me. How's he hit you? She said, he knocked something off the table with his hand. Okay? And this thing flew, it hit the wall, and it hit me in the head. That's violence. And I said, are you serious? So we knocked something off the table. So in other words, if someone's playing tennis, or you're driving past the golf course and a stray ball comes through, hits you on the head, you can charge the golfer with domestic violence. Yeah, honestly, the way people calculate things, it makes absolutely no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. And the thing got me, it ricocheted off the wall. It wasn't a direct hit. And it wasn't intended. This is the thing, I asked her, was he intending to hit you? She said, no, he hit the item. He actually hit the item. He was angry, he hit the item, and it ended up hitting her. But because she had nothing on him, rather than fix the problem. And we look at Asiya, as Samah the Sheikh mentioned with her story, she was married to Pharaoh. And she was patient. And through her patience, she became in the hereafter the wife of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, on the counter to that, some of the wives of the Prophet, and once again some women too, they were the wives of the Prophet in the dunya, wives of Rasulullah. And he was patient with them. Rasulullah was so patient with them. And they lost what they had in the hereafter. He didn't immediately say, that's it, I'm getting a divorce. Because we have a narration that the man that is patient with his wife of ill temper, his reward is the reward of the patience of Nabi Ayyub alayhi salam. So you think about that. And as the verse says, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّ الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. That the patient, or the people of patience, the ones that are sabirin, the people of endurance, the people that are forbearing, they will receive their entire reward without an account. Do you know what that means, without an account? That means that on the day of judgment, they enter paradise without an account, without hisab. Because they were patient. They endured when others did not endure. Now this does not mean, accepting reality does not mean you can't cry. Taban, you can cry. Something, you can cry over it. You can cry, you can lament, but there shouldn't be a point where you turn against or you despair from Allah's mercy. This is where the issue comes about. As the hadith on Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, مَا مِن مُؤْمِنٍ إِلَّا وَهُوَ مُبْتَلَى بِبَلَاءٍ. Every believer has a bala. Every believer is going through a trial. The biggest trial we are going through here is us. Today we are being alienated by the West as Muslims, and even by the Muslims themselves. The Muslims themselves don't consider us Muslims. Although the West is the one smashing them in their papers. You know, if a Muslim kills a fly, they say terrorist kills fly, because he was a Muslim. And the Muslims remain silent and say, Rawafid, club. So they turn around. These Rafidi dogs, that's all they're worried about, but they're not worried about what the Westerners doing to them. They couldn't care less as long as you kill the Rafidi. You just look at it and it makes you wonder, how does this all happen? This is part of your test. To be patient, to endure. Even if you take a look, when Banu Umayyah ruled and Banu al-Abbas removed them and took the rule, they went on and killed who? Ahl al-Bayt. They didn't go kill all of Banu Umayyah, went chase them. They always look for who the good people are, because this is what the test is about. The people that are with God are the ones that go through this scrutiny. And even being a believer, not only does it stop with the unbeliever being against you, and it doesn't also stop with the other Muslims being against you. It goes even to your own peers and colleagues, your friends, people that you're with. You know, if they say, hold on, let's go to a certain place. You're with your friends and it's a Friday night and they say, listen, we're going to Brighton Beach. Now people turn around and say, what's wrong with driving past Brighton? Oh, in this weather, there wouldn't really be an issue. But let's go towards the summer. What are you going to do driving past Brighton Beach? What are you going to look at? What is the drive there for? What are you viewing? If you say no, they say, look at this guy. You know, your peers and colleagues put pressure on you. Or if they want to put music in the car, if you say no, they go, look at this guy. Party pooper, wants to destroy the whole night. And there's that pressure. And that pressure mounts where I have to choose between God and my friends. And if you look at it, it's an easy choice. You know, if I choose between God and my friends, it's like I'm saying, Barcelona is playing against American Samoa. Who's going to win? It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. You don't need much to think about that. So God or my friends, but then people say, all right, too much pressure. But it even gets worse than that. It even gets to where your family's against you. This is where the sabr is. When your own family doesn't want you. If you don't go to this, one of my friends, this while back, told me that his parents told him that they will aghdab alayh, that they will be so angered with him because they know he was religious. They said, naghdab alayk if you don't come with us to this wedding, because you're going to embarrass us if you don't turn up. And I said, listen, God says you have to be good to your parents, but the line is drawn when it comes to him and them. God doesn't share the throne with anyone. This is where it stops, but you cannot be rude to them. You say, look, I love you, I'm not going to make it, or something. You cop the flack, be quiet. But he said it's so difficult because to my parents, no offense, the people in the south, the merrymakers, I won't say which village. It's from one of those villages where they just love partying all the time. If their son's not on Ras al-Dabke, there's issues. They might put him up for adoption. But anyway, it was one of those, and he had to deal with it. This is why when you look at these stories of patience and forbearance, طبعا the story of Nabi Ayyub, which we have gone over before, stands out. But the real strength is when you read when Allama Al-Ameli, rahmatullah alayh, in his book Al-Ghadir, he said, I did not know the strength of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in Badr or Uhud or Khaybar or the Khandaq. Mentions some battles. He says, I knew the strength of Ali ibn Abi Talib on the day they attacked his house, and he had to be patient. This is where the strength applies. Because you need to think Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, is the same man who says, لو تضافر العرب على قتلي لما وليت عنها. That if all the Arabs united to kill me, لما وليت عنها means I would have killed every single one of them. Doesn't mean I would have fought them. He says I would have killed them. No one would have had a chance. He knows who he is. Why? لأني محق والله مع المحق, as he says. Because he says I'm in the right. He knows what his prowess is, his ability is. However, when he is commanded by God, he surrenders to the command of God. When he is commanded to be patient, and this form of patience, people say, look how cowardly he is. These people trying to make Ali ibn Abi Talib into a coward. When Ali is this is the... Do these people read the Quran? إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. When Luqman al-Hakim is talking to his son, he speaks about this as the most courageous of ordeals that one is in. To be patient at the moment that you know you can do something about it, but the patience has prevalence over, or is above, it supersedes fighting because it's more beneficial to your faith, then you choose patience. The God-fearing are patient during hardships. This is what makes them distinct and makes them different. This is what gave the status of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Salamullah alayh. His patience is what we look at. We are overawed. You sit there and you read. The whole time you are listening. Yani billahi alaykum, these people that question this. When you listen to Musibat Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on the day of Ashura, the majority of the hadith, how much of the actual musibah is read about him fighting? The whole musibah is about his stance of patience and talking against the enemy, talking to them and calling them to paradise. This is what we talk about. We talk about his patience, his enduring moments. This is what makes him rise and elevate. And this is when God has selected these people before he has brought them on this earth. He has tested them, as we read in Ziyarat Fatima alayha salam. Ahsant, ya mumtahanatan. Allah has tested her. Before he brought her, she was tested. And he noted that her patience was what he was tested with. She was tested with the patience because this is what elevates you. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Allah is with the patient. May Allah grant us patience and forbearance and endurance in this month, and place us with the patience and count us of the patient especially those that are patient in enduring and awaiting their master Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.